Hey, what's going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to be taking a step back of sorts and kind of reviewing a few things that we lightly touched upon in earlier videos. Maybe not so much, but we didn't really discuss them. Let me stop trying to explain myself and jump right into it here. If you remember the last video that we had here, it was on the terrain foliage paint mode, okay? In that video, you look over here on my right hand side on my attributes panel, under foliage layer painting, there was a section for terrain detail height. I don't know if you guys remember that. Okay, well, we didn't really get into it because I didn't know what the terrain detail height did. I never used it in any of my maps, and I never had any kind of negative effects from not using it. And it's mostly because I didn't know what it did. And I'm not the type of person that I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put myself up on a pedestal and fake it till I make it and kind of pretend that I know all these things, because I don't. And I will be the first person to tell you when I don't know something. Okay. And with that being said, I'd like to give a giant shout out to Papa Smurf from Papa Smurf Modding. He's the one that enlightened me here and showed me, he explained to me what this tool was and how it worked. And like I said, we're all helping each other. So again, that's Papa Smurf from Papa Smurf Modding. That's a giant thank you for showing me how this tool worked. So in return, I played around with it a little bit, and in return, I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, so this is the terrain detail height explained. Okay, now we're going to be using these foliage channels here a little bit. So don't panic. If you don't really know what they are or how to work with, these channels here, it's really easy. In one of my very next videos, I'm going to explain to you exactly what the channels are and how to use them. Okay, it's really, really easy. So let's not panic for now. I'm not going to explain it too much in this video, maybe a little bit, but it's really, really easy. Okay, so now back to terrain detail height. What is it? What does it do? All right, so during your map build, if you want to create a pile of something, and that would usually be one of your fill types, no matter what that is, whether it's corn or wheat or it's sorghum or it's stones or lime or salt, you get the idea. So if you want to create a pile of whatever, this is how you're going to do that. Okay. Now the lower numbers, okay, the 0 through, like say 0, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, probably doesn't go too high. That's going to represent the ID. See, each one of these check boxes here represents a value, okay, a numerical value. And so the lower ones here, 0 through 4, let's say, I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't go too high, because once you realize what these values are, you're not going to be going too high because you just don't have that many fill types. All right. And the higher numbers, say 8 through 11, those are the ones that represent the height of your pile. All right. So I'm going to just randomly click two of them here. I'm going to click 0 and 2, and that's going to be my ID. Now, those two together are going to represent the value of 5. And the way that I know that is it's a color scale, basically. So a 0-bit color scale, not really such thing. I guess there might be. A 0 bits equals 1 color, right? A 1-bit color scale equals 2 colors. Now think of it this way. 0, if you start at 1, because it's the first one, it just double as you go along. So 0 equals a 1-bit, or 0-bit equals 1 color. 1-bit equals 2 colors. 2 bits equals 4 colors. 3 bits equals 8 colors, 4 is 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. You get the idea. So with each consecutive checkbox, the number doubles. That's the way bits work in a color scale. In our builds in FS22, you'll hear a lot that, some of your info layers and stuff and your density heights and stuff, or your map densities need to be like an 8-bit PNG. Well, what does that 8-bit mean? Well, 8-bit, it means it's capable of 256 colors. Now, if you remember in our info layers, when we went over the farmlands, if you had 8 channels, well, there's a little bit different between the channels, because these are the channels here. So that's not necessarily the bits, but anyhow, if it was an 8-bit info layer, it would be capable of 256 colors, because that's what 8 bits is capable of, right? And since each color represents a specific farmland, then you're capable of 256 farmlands. really easy, right? Okay, so anyhow, we know that 0 equals 1 and 2 equals 4. So I have the ID of 5, right? And then a height, I'm going to start out small. Let's see if 8 is actually a height. I think it is. It is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint that down there. Let's have a quick look. And to me, they look like coffee beans. I'm drawing a blank, and since I'm doing a video, I'm not going to beat myself up trying to figure out exactly what that is. But they look like coffee beans, right? And they're not. I know they're not, but they look like it to me. All right, so we got this pile here. Now, like I said, this pile isn't for just decoration purposes. Once you test this in game, you can interact with this pile. You can come up with a front end loader and you can fill a bucket and then dump that bucket into your silo or into a wagon or the back of your truck, or you can shove it with a plow. So you can interact with this pile. All right. Now, when you say say 5 here, this 5 that I have, that represents not coffee beans or whatever that is. All right. And I'm going to show you how to get. It's a one-to-one relationship with your. All right, let me do this the other way. I'll show you how to find this file first. All right, so I'm going into my my base game folder for the Farming Simulator 22. I assume by now that you know how to get there. See, mine was in Program Files, Steam Apps, Common. Okay, so then you want to go into Data, go into Maps. Now, don't pick like a specific map like US, French. Start looking down this list, and you see this one here where it's maps _ density map height types. Okay, that's what you want. So when we start that up, you can see all your fill types. Starting at the first one here. No, I don't want to do that. Not right now. Thank you for offering though. Wheat being number 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So number 5 on my list is sorghum. All right. So going back here, even though that looks like coffee beans or whatever it is, when I test this in game, it will show up as sorghum. So if you picked grapes or lime or salt or wheat, okay, it's always going to look like this coffee bean material. And don't roast me because I keep saying coffee beans. I just can't remember what exactly that is. But every time you work with it in the editor, it's always going to look like this specific coffee bean material, okay? It's only when you test it in game that it looks like the ID that you picked of what it's supposed to be. So in game, it'll look like sorghum, okay? Or if I change the ID and I pick lime in game, it will look like lime. But in the editor, it only looks like coffee beans. Okay, now, when I tested this the first time, I think I had picked lime, okay? And that's like number 15, let's say. I think it is 15. I'm not going to count them just because I'm need to keep going with this video. But anyhow, so let's say lime is 15. When I tested it in game, the one before showed up, which was seeds. So it was off by 1. Now, I don't know if that was something that I did, like maybe I have an extra fill type in there, or why it was off by 1. But just keep that in mind that, you know, if you pick, say, maize and you get a pile of grapes, that you could be off by 1 as well. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's not really broken. Just make that adjustment. So instead of number 15, just change your ID to 14 and then you're good to go. All right. It's just something for you to keep in mind. I did run across that. All right. So going back to our pile of coffee beans here. Okay. Like I said, 8 through 11 is going to dictate the height. So if I come back to 10, let's click on that. Not both of them. You want to uncheck one of them because that would be an entirely different value. And then there you go. You can see that my pile just got a little bit bigger. Now, I will warn you not to go too high with your pile, okay? It does have some undesired results, let's just say that. When I tested it, it didn't really look that great. I could actually see underneath the pile. It kind of looked like it was hovering up in the air. Not really a good look. So just keep in mind that you don't want to go too high with that. All right, so just remember that your lower channels here are going to dictate your ID. And again, I'll go over that real quick with you. 0 equals 1. Your 1 equals a 2. And then just keep doubling. 2 is 4. 3 is 8. 4 is 16. 5 is 32. 6 is 64. right on up the line. So super easy to figure that out. If you ever get stuck and you just look up like color schemes, like an 8-bit color scheme, and there is a Wikipedia page out there I know that explains like 0 equals 1. It explains all of that to you. But that's really all you need to remember. You don't even need to know anything about bits or color schemes. Just remember that 0 equals 1 and double. Just keep doubling. Each one is double of the previous. So, 1 doubled is 2, 2 doubled is 4, and then 3, you want to double that, 4 is 8. You get it, right? We're all smart people. All right, so that explains the terrain detail height, or hopefully I explained it well enough that you guys kind of got a handle on that. All right, and again, one more time, a huge thank you to Papa Smurf from Papa Smurf Modding for bringing that to the table and kind of enlightening us all and letting us know what that does. So now that, we could all use that in our future map builds and make something great. Alrighty, so let me turn around here and there we go. Some of you guys might remember this hut. I use this on the Elm Creek extension, and I'm gonna make an example out of this right now because there's something else that I want to touch on, right? And if you remember when we went over the info layers, now let me look on the right hand side here on my attributes panel. Alrighty, I passed it, didn't I? Yes, info layers. Okay, so if you go down here, we have tip collision generated and placement collision generated. Okay. What I want to explain to you is I think when we went over this the first time when I explained it, I don't really think I explained it too well. What I mean by like tip collision generated, it's not like a magic button, or it's not something I'm going to go to scripts and go down to generate. That's not what that is. So I think I didn't explain that well enough the first time around. I tend to do that when I know what it means, but I got to keep in mind that I'm explaining these things to somebody. So what generated means, okay? Like I said, it's not a magic click the button and it generates all this stuff for you. That's not going to happen. So you see this hanger I got here, right? On the left-hand side of my screen in my scene graph, if you look down at all the listings here, at all these transform groups, you can see one right here that says indoor areas. That indoor areas, okay, if I open that up, it's giving me a start, and then it might give me a width and a height. So what that's doing is it's saying that this area here is indoors, right? So when you use this placeable, and you see this mostly with placeables more than you do just regular like prefab objects that are already, on a map. It's usually placeables is where you see this, because the person that created that placeable, the 3D modeler or artist that put that together, he's the one that dictated, or they are the one that dictated what that indoor area is. So basically this placeable, this hanger, when you use that in a map, it's generating that indoor area. Same thing with tip collision. Okay, so sometimes under collision, you'll see another heading for tip collision, or you got your tip collision update areas there. Okay, but that's what the generated is. It's part of the placeable that you're using on that map. So that placeable is telling the game engine that there's a certain area that it's saying is indoors, or it's telling you is a tip collision, right? So that's what the generated is. Any of those items that have it listed, in a scene graph here, it has to have it listed. It just doesn't come up with that out of thin air. The person that created that placeable had to put that there, but that's where the generated is coming from. It's coming from the placeable. So if the specific placeable doesn't have this in here, it's not going to show up on your generated list. Only if that placeable already has, or that object, whatever it is, already has that listed inside of here, then it will show up on your generated. Okay, that's where that's coming from. Not a magic button that's going to take care of all that for you. Hate to break it to you, but you're still going to have to go through, and you're going to have to, paint in all your tip collisions, and you're going to have to paint in, all your indoor areas and stuff like that. We'll go over all of that again in a future video when we get to that part in our map making process. Really not as bad as it sounds. And placement collision, or the placement I don't want to say collision, but the infoLayer for the placement. Boy, I'm just drawing all kinds of blanks tonight, ain't I? I am. Yeah, the placement collision. That's one that's basically generated for you. You're not going to have to go through and paint all those in. All right, so just keep that in mind. All right, so the last thing I wanted to get into for this video was going back to Foliage. Let me go up here to Foliage Layer Painting. There was 2 sections here for olives and grapes, all right? Now, it gives you the whole list here where it says no olives all the way up to harvested weed, all right, that you can pick your layer state. Now, some of you guys may have already tried it and realized it gives you nothing but grass when you try to paint it this way. And the reason for that is olives and grapes are placeable, okay? You're actually going to... We'll go over placeables in a future tutorial, but just know that you're not just painting them in here just like this, right? It's going to be a placeable. That's how you're going to get those things, you know, into your map. Okay, so I could probably even show you really quick where you're going to find that. So you go back to your Farming Simulator base game. All right, go up to a Farming Simulator, go to Data. Let's see, go to Placeables. Down to Lizard, and here's one. We'll pick olive, and out of the olive folder, let me minimize that there. Okay, let's drag that in there. All right, and there we have poles and we have panels. Okay, so let's start with poles. This would be pretty self-explanatory. All right, so I'm going to hit Control B, and I'm going to set down one of the poles. Oh, wait a minute, I set down the whole transform group. Sorry. Maybe it's me that doesn't know it. So let's put down like pole number 1. And there's a pole. What is going on here? Am I doing something wrong? Maybe I'm not the one that's so good at this today. All right, let's go into panels. Find out what I'm doing wrong here. I just want you to keep in mind that this is the way it's going in. It's via a placeable. See, okay, there's a panel. So I got one of the panels to go in. All right, and then there you can see is my olives. So that's the way that you're getting these things in there. You might want to play around with that a little bit, you know, if you need to use it like right now. If you don't need to use it right now, you know, just hang tight until we get to that part in our tutorial where we go over placeables, and then I'll teach you all about that. For right now, the only thing that I wanted to touch on was to let you know that in a terrain foliage paint mode, that olives and grapes, you can't just paint in there just like you can with wheat or one of your other fill types. These you have to lay down via a placeable. Okay. I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. You know, because I'm sure you went through the list and you tried out a few things. Now you still might want to paint the ground type. So if this field right here was going to be an olive field, I mean, by all means, you know, come in here and paint it in, you know, with the grass and stuff that's there. And then you'll have to go through and put down the bushes and stuff, your poles and your panels, you know, via placeable. All right. But I just wanted to clarify that because I know I didn't go over that when we went over the tutorial for foliage painting. Alrighty, and hopefully I covered everything. So hopefully, you know, the terrain detail height makes a little bit of sense now. Thank you again, Papa Smurf. And everything else makes a little bit of sense to you. And I'm going to wrap this up right there and move on to my next video. And with that being said, I am Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.